No, I didn't give a good warning today, but I was busy. I'm sorry. Hey, Tim Burton dolls. Sorry for the late story saying I was going to be here. I got busy in a couple of job responsibilities, so I didn't have time to put up a story right away. What's up? So I'm glad there's still people coming. I just shot out the story right before I sat down here. Just took a quick picture with me and something that came in the mail today. Hey, Nitro, Tim Burton dolls. Alicorn. Hello, Zuri Bixb. Chipakachikapasco. Playing with space rockets. Yeah, job responsibilities. Actually, I was listening to music, which was part of my job today. Oh, I'm so glad. Thanks, Camber Starnes. Captain Cheese, JJ the Super Turtle. Thanks, Josh Trainer. Really appreciate it. Player Motu joined. What's up, Motu brothers and sisters? Hey, yo. I got some new Motu stuff in the mail coming soon. So keep an eye out there. I'm going to play with a couple characters. Can you say a few words about armature tightness? I might get to animate a proper puppet in a few weeks. Methane in the membrane. Yeah, I'm weird when it comes to armatures. Just so you know, I love tight armatures. You ask anyone at Leica, because every time you get a puppet ready for one of your shots, you have to go talk to your armaturist, and your armaturist will make it tight or make it loose. And a lot of people at Leica specifically like really, really loose armatures. But I feel so, unsure of where my puppet is in space that I want it to be a brick. I want it to be so hard that it only moves when I move it. So I prefer tight because I always stabilize certain sections of the puppet when I'm moving in another section. So I never have issues with it, moving the arm and it'll move the spine, or move the head and it moves the whole body. Like I'm always stabilizing and then moving exactly what I want, so I know how much it'll go. So it's really up to you as an animator. Go with something in the middle at first, and then if it's too hard, you can go light or you can go harder. But I really like my stuff because I might bump it. There's so many things that happen while you're animating. If I bump a puppet, I don't want to lose all of the pose that I got. Because when you're working in 24 frames per second, it's really hard to get back to a good pose after you've knocked or bumped it out of the way. Because it's the tiniest little increments will show up as giant bumps on the large screen. Thanks, Motu, Player Motu. Hello there, Bud Fan. Yes, Black Bear, Motu. Yep, more Motus coming for sure. I got it. Like I said, I've been ordering a few toys, which is part of what I wanted to talk about tonight. Is I'm more of a puppet animator for sure. See the dinosaur back there, or any of my puppets from my films that I've made, or the cat from Coraline that Suzanne made me. Those are puppets. So I am 100% in control of the movement and the range of movement. And with Toymation, it's really, really limited. So I like, just to talk about it right away, is like I just got the new Figma toy from Overwatch here, Widowmaker, and these toys are amazing as far as how posable they are. They're really, really posable. I can do so much with them to make them look like they do in the games or hit poses that are iconic. But animation wise, it's really can be challenging because some of the joints are loose, or say some of the joints are tight, right? Like in the He-Man toys or some of the other toys you might get out there, where the mobility might have a sticking point. So getting really, really tiny moves can be quite a challenge. And so I'm learning more the more I do, right? So I've been out in the garage the past week full of nights animating a Reaper. The one I did, if any of you saw it, in the run cycle that I did as my live animation last week. It came out great. I was really happy with it, and it was fun to animate in front of people. But there's so many little bits that wiggle or wouldn't go quite far enough. So it was a struggle. It was a struggle, right? But that's part of the fun of Toymation too, is kind of dealing with the limitations. So like when I was animating the Motu characters, the He-Man characters, they were really the most mobility they've ever had on a He-Man character, but they still, like the spine only twists, right? The neck only, does what it does, right? It has a certain amount of range. The wrists don't go this way. They only go this way. So you have to really kind of play with your arcs and how you're moving through space with these characters to get them to perform properly. So a few of the things I'm learning through doing this is when I was doing the He-Man Motu stuff, I would use clay at the bottom of the ankles. And I put that in my episode. If any of you haven't seen it, go watch it on I think it's episode 9 on Motu. On my YouTube channel, Justin Rasch Animation. And you can see, to get a toe roll, like a natural foot will roll off its toe when it leaves the earth, or leaves the ground as it's swinging off, I would just put clay underneath the heel to let the leg bend naturally and then peel off the foot. And I would also, for like any kind of rolling through that would get weird with the limited foot, I would use clay. There was a few moments where I really wanted to get an arch, bam, in the back, like when Skeletor got hit. And I put it in the episode again, but my daughter mixed clay that was the same color as Skeletor's skin, and I just, for a few frames, just to get that flexibility in the spine, I added clay between the upper body and the lower body so that I could arch the back a little bit more than with the capabilities of the puppet. And these kind of little tricks I'm saying right now, this is standard stop motion problem solving, which is your number one skill in being a stop motion animator, is problem solving. So I'm out there in the garage right now, and I'll go down with you guys in a little bit, animating Reaper, and his arm is outstretched like this, and it keeps falling down, right? Because there's not enough tension in the joint at that exact angle that I'm hitting in order to keep it to hold position. So what am I doing, right? I took some blue sticky tack. If you guys don't know what that is, it's super handy. It's museum kind of base stuff that you put, it's a putty that you put maybe a sculpture on or something, that when there's an earthquake, it won't fall off the shelf. But also is this lovely sticky tack that basically I shove it in the off screen behind the shoulder, and when I lock that in there, it gives me the stability I need in the shoulder. And I was having the same thing as Reaper has these weapons that are these big long guns, right, that go on these wrists. And of course, it's not a tight grip on the hand. So there's wiggle room on the gun itself, which wiggles around in the hand, and then there's not much flexibility in the wrist either. So again, I'm using clay, I'm using sticky tack, I'm using wax, anything I can to give it a little bit more stability while I'm animating, because I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, and it's really, really tiny increments, and it's also a mid shot up close. You guys will see it soon. I finished it. I just have to remove a bunch of wires. But then that leads me to my next thing, right? So when I animate Widow here for one of my future tests, none of these figures have tie downs in their feet, right? So their feet are going to be wiggling all over the place. Sticky tack. If you don't want to drill into the foot, and like with these ones, because they have such good toe mobility, I don't want to break the toe mobility, I'm just using sticky wax on the feet. But that means that your character probably has to be supported the entire time you're animating it. So that means a rig going into the back of the character, which is what I had going on with Reaper right now. And that means sticky tack on the feet to try to stabilize positions. That means wax in some of the grips of weapons. Or like her, she has this giant sniper rifle. I don't even know what I'm getting into with this character yet. She has this giant ponytail. That's something I'm going to do a little modification on. Because the ponytail is just one big, giant, stiff piece of plastic. But it's one of her defining characteristics. So I'm just going to make a clay or some kind of a cloth example of the ponytail. And I'm going to replace it and glue it in there so I can get some proper movement on that. But again, problem solving, figuring it out as you go. For Toymation 2, one of the things that I'm learning is working on 2s is a lot easier than working on 1s. If the people here that are animators understand what I'm saying, 12 frames per second versus 24 frames per second. That will make your performance a lot easier, a lot less frames you have to have supported. So I think I'm going to be adding a lot more 2s to some of my future work in toys. I love 1s, so I'm always going to have some 1s in there, but I think 2s are going to make it a lot less frustrating to animate toys. And if you're doing things like camera moves or, other dynamic filmmaking besides the actual character animation, 2s are also going to be a lot easier on that because you don't have to do as many camera moves. It's a lot simpler. Eduardo Cortez, what's up? Hold on here. All right, I'll take a break. I got a couple questions. You promise you'll show your studio in the last live. Okay, yeah, let's go down. Fabi, I'll take you down there. I've been down in my studio many times in live streams, so I assume most of you had seen it by now. I might have to put the phone down and get my dog, though, so you're going to have to be patient. Because she will come tumbling down the stairs. She's way old. Belle, come on. Let's go. Come on. Up. Let's go. Up. Whoa. Grandma Belle's old. She can't handle stairs anymore. Oh. All right, let's go into the garage. Take it to the studio, Fabi. All right. So right now, you're basically going to see the tail end of what I just animated, which was Reaper. And it's in between projects. So I don't know if you can see there, Fabi, but I put up a blue screen curtain. Got a 4x8 table that's blue right now. It usually has sets on it. Of course, I've got my camera. This one is a time lapse. That's my main camera that I shoot with. I got my table here. That's my animated table. It's got all my tools and anything I would need per shot. I have winders, cameras, lenses, backup camera, winder for camera moves. I've got these are basic tables, tapes, velcros, glues, hot glue guns, more lighting stuff, lights, C-stand equipment, Got lighting gels, backup light bulbs because your lights always go out. Basic tools for whatever, extension cords. I got up here big light rack with lots of lights on it. I got my TV, which has always got old 80s movies on it, or later, even older, while I'm animating. My computer, that's where I actually animate. I've got my table, I've got thumbnails, like buckets of thumbnails. This is where, usually when I do an animation, before I start, I just draw up thumbnails. So the new one, for instance, with Reaper, I'm doing a bunch of, you guys will see soon, but I'm doing all the poses on that. Bunch of different rigs. I got normal rigs, winder rigs, and extra little lights here. So I'm gonna show you Reaper, since this is what I was just working on, and we're talking about Toymation. So here's Reaper, just finished an animation. As you can see, it's very roughly attached. All this is hot glued some wire, and it goes into Reaper's back. If you saw the making of Reaper run, you saw exactly how I attached it. I drilled a hole, I used some hot glue, and remember when I was saying I used some sticky tack? That's that blue stuff there. Holding the guns here, see that blue? That's just to hold position. See the blue here on the bottom of his feet? Blue tack to keep his feet in place. So things happen, like when I was animating with this guy right here, the leg came off, right? So like this happens, right? These guys are really mobile, but these things slide out pretty easy when you're doing animation. Makes it difficult, makes it challenging. So at a certain point in this animation, I just gave up and left the legs behind. And I said, okay, he's just gonna be floating around. But there was more than once at the beginning that I had to shove this back in there and reattach it and do surgery, whatever I could. Reaper has this cape, right? And of course, horrible toy to start with because you have it's hard enough to do animation on a really complicated new toy, but then when you throw the cape in there, it gets even more complicated. So one of the things I did to stabilize it is I glued the cape together in the back. I just put a little glue on it so it would become one mass instead of two separate pieces. But that did the trick and allowed me to animate. I can show you, this is another piece that's really challenging, is the hood. It's falling off constantly, right? Problems with toys. So this is a rigid hood. This rigid hood doesn't move like my puppet's hood does. So if my head turns on my puppet, the hood does a cool cloth move with it. Here, the head all moves independently. So this is always locked down. So to keep that looking natural as it's falling off, very challenging. And as you can see here, the head moves, but it's limited by the amount of range that the hood allows, right? So I was doing a lot of things where I unplugged the two front pieces here, there, but I left the back piece in, so I had kind of a pivot where I could get the head to move a little bit further than it would normally without distracting too much by lifting off here. And I'll show you guys, before you see it for real, kind of the rough of what I'm animating right now. Let me see here. I gotta load it up. Sorry guys, give me a second. Boom, boom, delete. Here it is, I think. All right, so I'll show you. Where's my animation? Animation disappeared. Don't mess with me. What is going on? I don't like that. It looks like my Reaper animation disappeared somehow. I don't know what happened. Not good. Hopefully it's just some opacity thing or something like that. Oh, I can't show you guys. I'm so bummed. I don't know what's going on. You guys were going to get an awesome sneak peek, but I'm going to leave that alone before I burn too much time. Let me answer a couple more questions real quick. What's your go-to tool, must-have tool when animating your puppets? My puppets, it's probably just tie downs, you know, and I don't even know if that's a tool. Oh, what am I talking about? Of course, it's a drill. My go-to tool is just my drill. Because every single frame that I move a foot or put something up or down, I have to drill a hole in the set. So go-to tool, this is used all the time, constantly. Other than that, like I said, if it's a character leaving the earth or needing support, then a good rig. You know, these are priceless. And winders are very, very cool. Although I always say it to people, they're very cool, but they're not necessary. I can do everything with that. It just the winders are a pretty awesome addition to our to what we do as animators. Sorry. All right. Do you like stop motion at 60 frames per second? I don't even know if I've ever seen that. 60 frames per second. That's crazy. Who would ever animate that? That seems like your life wouldn't be very worth living if you're animating 60 frames per second. 24 looks awesome. I can't imagine why anyone would do 60. Maybe video game people. Not rig, winders. Not rig, winders. Yeah, winders. Rigs, winders, they're awesome. Call them what you will. Is there something that I could use to replace the rig that everyone uses to animate? Are expensive. Yeah, you could use a weight. I say it all the time. Just a 5-pound weight with some wire in it. I'm telling you, way more people use this than winders, because winders are expensive. See that? That's aluminum wire. Hey, Aiden. This is just aluminum wire. And even if you look at this, my super fancy rig, that's just aluminum wire there attached to it. That's all it is. So here is a weight, right? 10-pound weight with wire coming out of it. That's it. It's hot glued wire. Every time I teach a class to students at Blizzard, I just give them a block of wood. We cut up a bunch of 2x4s, a block of wood, and put a little swirl of aluminum wire on there, and it holds up every figure for them for any animation they want to do. It's a great way to learn that's super cheap. Super cheap. Do I like the movie I Love Dogs? I do. I think it's really cool. It's got a great look. Wes Anderson, has his flavor. So if you go in, it's very, very cool. Very charming is what I would call it. Very charming. I have a lot of buddies that worked on it. If you don't shoot the legs in your shot, can you just use the rig, or do you recommend drilling anyways? If you're not moving the feet, you don't, if you're not moving the feet, you don't need to, I guess. I like to move the feet because I like things to feel organic. I have this term that I call in the phone booth, which means basically you're animating in a box. So your character only goes this way and that way. They don't ever leave the box. It's a very common thing that young animators do, or beginner animators. And then I have another term called ski boots. And that's when they put their feet on the ground, skis, and their feet just stay right on that line, the XYZ of skis, which is very unnatural. And then gravity boots, where the feet just stick to the ground always and they don't move. That's super unnatural, right? Like we're moving, I'm shifting weight, I'm stepping, I'm shuffling. If I'm turning and looking, my legs shift, everything shifts. So anytime my feet are involved in an acting piece, I'm always drilling and I'm always moving them around. But you can do anything. So these are just my ways. How do you animate cloth? Carpet in Aladdin. You'd have to put wire in it. Some kind of a foil. Some kind of a, like a lighting foil. I don't know if you're familiar with lighting stuff, but I'll get some for you right here. See, this is lighting foil. It's really stiff. So if you imagine it's like aluminum foil on steroids, right? So it's like way thicker and it will hold poses. If you put this inside of a cloth, you're going to be able to animate it. So a lot of times when I'm doing cloth on characters, we'll build the cloth around that material and I'll be able to animate it any way I want. It's really awesome. What would you 3D print mostly for stop motion based on my experience? Faces. Facial. I know this because I'm about to do it. I actually am, as a garage animator, I make my own films with my wife and family, and I've always done, like if you saw my Viking tests, I do these, like it's kind of a jawed movement, like up, 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 and then I shape it with the other things, like the fur, right? So I can shape the fur to make it look like different mouth shapes, but it's really just a hinged mouth. So I'm trying to up my level, my game as an animator in the garage, right? So it's time for me to try doing mouth shapes that are three-dimensional and modeled in CG and then printed out. I've done them sculpted like that, where I'll sculpt all the individual shapes, but I would like a little bit more control than the rough, kind of similar look of hand sculpting that, because it's really hard to get tiny increments. Like here I am smiling, like pose, 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 right? It's a big smile. Like that's like 7 or 8 shapes I just made getting to the smile. And sculpting at that level is really time consuming and really hard. So I'd say 3D printing faces is the most beneficial for people trying to use printing in stop motion. And also, it's just cool. It just looks cool. Oops. Let's see here. If the company that made the Overwatch figures asked you to advertise, would you make a full Toymation like Motu? I don't know if I'd be allowed to, because I work for Blizzard, right? And those are Blizzard characters, but I've already gone through making these really, really nice puppets for our shorts that we've made for the Cookie Watch and Trace and Bake. So I think Figma, which is a whole different company that made them, just licensed the characters. So it would be like advertising for their company, for Figma or Good Smile or whoever their company is, as opposed to advertising for my company, which is Blizzard. So it sounds really fun, but I'd rather do it with my puppets, because my puppets are way higher quality. They're bigger, they look better, they move better. I can do much cooler animation with them. So that's like closer to the statues that Blizzard makes it themselves. Have you ever animated a skateboard skating? No, I'd never done that. In CG I have. I haven't done it in stop motion. But in CG I've done a few skateboarders. Over the years. And I know how to skate too, so I have some experience here that I can draw upon. Does stop motion animator need to be able to draw? No. Not at all. Neither does the CG animator. Just to be clear, the only ones that really need to draw is a 2D animator. And Uh, it will make you better if you're an artist. I think it'll bring a lot to your work if you're an artist, but you do not need to be a 2D artist. Most stop motion people I know are not artists, 2D artists at all. Most, like 90% of them are not 2D artists. The CG artists, I should say, it's pretty high up there too, that most people do not draw that are CG animators these days. They might have had some core artistic training early on, but I don't see a lot of drawing happening as people are working. And I think it's for the same reason that stop motion doesn't, is because I was just talking to my wife about this before she went to the grocery store. And, in my last live stream, I showed my whole process, right? So I came out here, I set up Reaper, I showed my poses. I'm like, okay, I'm running. It's just an 18 frame cycle. Here we go. And I'm doing it, right? And then this new one I did little thumbnails for it. The reason people don't always do that in stop motion is because puppets don't do what drawings do. Plain and simple. Like, I can have this beautiful image that's got all this flexibility and characters are putting their arms here and there and stretching and arching. And then you get out on the set and your character can't do any of that, right? So it's kind of a waste of time sometimes to draw that. That's why people, when they work in stop motion, they don't block on paper or thumbnail on paper very often. They just go out there, they grab the puppet and they pose it. They do poses. So they'll pose a character, take a picture, pose character, take a picture. And that is kind of their drawings, right? That's their thumbnails to inform them as they're going to do an animation, what they are actually going to be able to do, and then improve upon as best they can, as far as like pushing poses or adjustments. CG, very similar. I think people just get in there into the computer and then they just start posing. And in CG, I know this because we use video reference like crazy in CG animation. So because we're using video reference all the time, if you get a performance that's fairly good on video, you kind of have your poses already drawn. So you can kind of take that, put it into the computer, and then once you do that, then you can push and adjust and blah, blah, blah. So again, you don't really need to draw. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I see it all the time. But it also leaves a lot of opportunity for people who think they might not be able to be an animator. How do you see yourself in 10 years? I see myself directing movies, directing my own films, hopefully directing movies for other people as well, and being independent. I think independent and choosing what I want to work on, choosing when I want to work, and that's the dream for 10 years. I've been, animating for 25 years as a worker, right? I'm telling other people's stories. I'm making other companies rich off of video games that I make or whatever, or movies that I animate on. So I've always been a storyteller, and I want to tell my own stories. So I've been working really hard in that direction to get there. That's my 10-year. When it comes to foam puppets, what do you recommend as far as using an oven to bake in the family kitchen? Ooh, okay. I'll show you my oven. So when we started doing foam latex puppets, this is Distract asking this too. We didn't want to cook in our family oven, right? Because that, you don't want to have weird chemicals or odors stinking up the house or anything like that. So we went on Craigslist, and right here, if you can see this brown oven, $25. Got it for $25 right here, and that's where we cook all of our puppets. So super easy. It's big enough to get some really big puppets in there, and doesn't cost anything. So we got a really an old grandma blender to do the mixing of the chemicals. That was awesome. These old, 50s blenders. And then we got a $25 oven. And the only thing that I can give you advice-wise on that is make sure that it has a plug that you're going to be able to use at your house. Because it's like a 440 plug. It's not like these kind of plugs, like your standard normal plugs. It's like a big fat one that some of the old stuff comes with. So you could probably get a converter, or just make sure. Usually most garages have like 440 plugs, so you could go see if you have one in there. So that'll hopefully help you there. But foam latex is awesome. It's really repairable. It again will maintain the quality of your character. Really, it's a great way to make puppets. What's the best advice someone ever gave me? Oh man, I don't know. I didn't get a lot of advice coming up, but I think my best advice was an example, which was just I didn't get along with my parents ever growing up, right? I haven't even talked to my parents for 25 years, a long time, 20 years at least. But the example that I got from my parents was hard work. My parents busted their asses, both of them. And all of their kids busted their asses. That's me, that's my sisters. And working hard, it makes things happen. That's all I can say, is it makes things happen. If you have goals, set goals and bust your freaking ass, and you will accomplish those goals. It's just hard work. It's all hard work. Everything's hard work. You think it's talent or luck or right place. It's freaking hard work. It's just grinding, man, and setting clear goals. So that was the best advice I ever got, was hard work. Work hard. Hope that helps. What are some of your favorite lights or light types to work with for miniatures? It's always different. Especially working on bigger shows like the Motu one, where I lit an environment versus lighting this, right, which is a very simple tabletop. These little mini moles up here, mini mole 250s, those are awesome. You get a really strong light source. You can control it a light. They're not too expensive, like relatively for lights. You can also I use these little cheap IKEA lights. They're freaking awesome, man. They cost nothing. So like when I shot Reaper, my little backlight is coming from that thing. It's just a little LED backlight. My core shadow and light is coming from the mini mole up there. I use probably the mini moles more than anything. But, I've got the bigger ones. I've got 500. I've got 1Ks over there. So the bigger stuff, like when we did our Dogonaut short, where it was a big sun over a giant planet surface, we used, of course, the 1K as our master source kind of sunlight. I hope that answers it. But I am not a lighting expert too. I have to say that. Like, that's my weakest skill. Any tips for where to look for a job as a freelance stop motion animator? Freelance is very different. I don't know freelance because I don't do it very often for stop motion. But most of it has got to happen on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, I guess. Like, if your work's out there, YouTube, of course, people come to you. And I'll let you know that because firsthand for me, I started getting, requests every single day. Once I hit a certain level on TikTok, once I hit a certain level on Instagram, job offers come constantly. So if you are a independent, as long as you have a decent following, and as long as you're putting out work regularly, you're probably going to get job offers. Otherwise, I think you could maybe contact an ad agency, try to get an agent. uh, get in some communities as far as like stop motion communities on Facebook or something like that. That might help you. But I think most of it comes from your socials, and people come to you once you get to a certain level. What brought you joy today? If you are happy, yeah, dude. The magic of animation, like today I'm working on a new short. Hearing the music that is going to be part of my short that I'm working on for Blizzard is like, dude, you get high. I get so high. I'm like, holy crap, like this is going to be my next cartoon. Like these characters that I've been imagining and storyboarding are now going to be the next step, is animated singing to this music that was just made by a composer. That was amazing. That brought me much joy. And I'll tell you what else is bringing me much joy is I'm going to go work out with my daughter. We're going to do a cardio session tonight, and then I'm going to watch a movie with my family because it's Friday movie night. And it's Friday, so it's the weekend. Very excited. Life advice for a 21-year-old. Jeez, I don't know. Set clear goals. Specialize. Work hard. I think that's all I can give you right now. Hard work, goals. Hard work, goals. I'm super goal orientated. Try resetting the PC. It sometimes shows the lost saves. Oh, thanks, man. I'll try it after. You guys will see soon enough. It was I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of my Reaper animation, my latest. But it'll hit the waves probably Monday. The internet. Tips on balancing family life and personal endeavors. Woo! Balance is super important. But I have to admit that I, as an animator, get things done because I don't sleep. I don't. Everything kind of happens after I've met the balance. Like, for instance, today I worked all day, right? So here I am giving you guys an hour. I'm hanging out with you for an hour, talking about animation, telling you about little things I've learned over the years. After this, I'm going to go into the gym and I'm going to work out with my daughter for 45 minutes. We're going to do cardio. After that, we're going to have a meal together and then we're going to watch a movie, right? And all of that's balance. And it'll probably end at about 11:30. And then, guess who goes into the garage? This guy, right? So then I start doing my personal art. But it pretty much happens after the others. And that's not easy. I know it's not easy because some days I'm just like, as motivated as I am and I love animation, I can't wait to move these characters. It's like, taking that first step into the garage, in the cold garage. It's winter. Turning on the lights can be challenging. But, I have little tricks I play on myself. I come in here, I turn on a movie right away. And I put on something that inspired me. I'm watching The Thing, right? One of my favorite movies ever, The Thing. But I'm Back to the Future. This shit's funny. I love this. Terminator, something that I grew up loving. Harryhausen, pop it on. And then what happens is once I start hearing those noises and that nostalgia and the inspiration swarms through me, and then I start digging in. And then as soon as I start, it's over. I'm animating and I'm just getting high from the amazing life that's taking place. But really the tips are, to me, a perfect day is body, right? So movement of some sort, exercise of some sort, art, some type of personal satisfaction for me, connection with my wife and my daughter, like real connection. And then I'm free, right? Once those three things are met and balanced, found, satisfied, I guess is what I would call, then I can go in and add something new to it. But if any of those gets out of order or missed, then I don't feel right. And they don't feel right, right? So then that's going to affect everything. Because if they're not in a healthy relationship to each other, then the other ones are going to falter in some way, right? So then it just all falls apart. I don't know. I'm just rambling. Sorry, guys. What are some of the core principles you follow on the most based on 2D and 3D? To good posing, right? Strong posing, timing is everything. Spacing, timing and spacing, anticipation, follow through, secondary action, appeal, like you name it, all of them. They're always being used, always. So it's not just one. I can't just say one. I am literally swimming in every single thing. Music, which is timing and spacing. I mean, you can get so much magic from that alone. But I'm using them all. What's the most project you worked on? I don't know what that means, but maybe it means my favorite project was probably Paranorman so far. So far. Let's see here. How do you stay motivated? Work to improve. Oh God, I love animation, guys. How do I stay motivated? I love it. I freaking love it. It feels like magic. And every time I bring these characters to life, or I continue telling a story that I want to tell, like my Viking story, it thrills me. It literally thrills me. So I have zero problems staying motivated at all. I've never ran out of motivation. And if I've gotten a little bit less motivated, I just look at the movies that made me want to do this. I look at the artwork. If you go into my office, you've seen the toys everywhere, the statues, the pieces of stop motion history. All of that will bring me right back to motivation. Surround yourself with inspiration and people that inspire you too. That's a tip from school. When I was in art school, I surrounded myself by the 5 people in my class that were super into it. And we fed off of each other and all became very successful. So try that too. Which do you have fun animating the most? Humans, animals, dinosaurs, Harryhausen? I love it all. I love that part of being an animator is that I get to be, a 7,000-pound gorilla, dinosaur, monster. And then I also get to be a vulnerable little girl, lost kid, or a superhero, or you name it, across the board, an animal, a cow, whatever, like all of those different experiences that I get to bring life to and move. I have no favorite. I just really enjoy telling a story. Like if there's the connection to a narrative, it's even more special to me than, of course, just the cool badassery of like a monster or something. Do you have any plans to be an animation teacher? I am an animation teacher. Pradyuma, I am an animation teacher. I teach privately on Zoom every week. I had 2 students today. So yeah, I already am a teacher. What I'm thinking about is possibly doing a Patreon. If I can find any time, which I don't have, I would start up a Patreon because I teach all the time and not everyone can afford my lessons because I charge what I'm worth, right? As a teacher. But Patreon might have a light version of some of my education. So it wouldn't be quite as private one-on-one as what I do normally, but I would have tutorials, really clear tutorials on pretty much all aspects of animation in stop motion at a much lower price. But I'd have to find the time and also see the interest, because every time I mention it, nobody is like, yay, let's do Justin's Patreon. Everyone wants it for free, and I get it. But I do teach, just in case you're wondering. Let's see here. Do you recommend using live action reference for practice stop motion? No, I don't recommend it. It's a crutch That's me being a snob. It's a crutch. When you're first animating, you should be thinking about the fundamentals. The stuff in Animator Survival Kit that I told you a lot of people to get. Performance. You can become informed. This is what I would say. Okay. Live action reference. If you want to film yourself to see what you're doing, to study what you're doing, take notes, then go animate, I'm up for that. I think that's cool. Because what that'll do is it'll give you a roadmap without you relying on it or copying it, which is what I see all the time. And it's weak to me. It looks weak. And then you'll find yourself applying the fundamentals of animation as opposed to just rotoscoping. Because that's what it is. It just becomes rotoscoping. You're not making timing decisions, which is what animation is all about. You're not making spacing decisions. You're copying what you're seeing in a video. So if you want to use it to get information before you go animate, that's great. Otherwise, I would say just use your imagination for a while and get those fundamentals working. And then you know, when you go work for Leica or something like that, you can really dig into some reference shoots. How many cameras do you set up when you record references of yourself? And how many safe takes do you do when you're self-ref directing? Okay, so when I work in CG, I do reference shoots, or my bosses do, right? So they set up 2 cameras. It's usually like a side camera, I guess, and then maybe a front camera, unless they're trying to match, you know, a certain kind of a camera move that's happening in the shot. But it's usually 2. But really, when I shoot my own reference, it's just 1 camera. And for me, how many takes do I do? I don't know. I'll do a bunch. I'll just, until I feel it, or I, like, usually inside your soul, you get like a little thing where you're like, oh, I think that was a good one, right? Like when you get a good take, you're like, oh, I think that was good. And then you just take it back. So maybe I'll do like, I don't know, 20 takes at a certain piece of acting. And then I'll have an idea. You get warmed up too. Like it gets better. Obviously, the less you think about it, the more you've memorized your lines, whatever. And then I'll go back to my desk and see if I can pick out which one I like the best. And then I can dig into my CG scene and stuff like that. Distract. That's that one. Okay. Hi. How could I show my work as a model maker, and where should I do it? It would be a dream for me. A model maker, I guess you're a sculptor then. You just make a website with a portfolio. And then you send that portfolio link to wherever you're applying, right? So if you're trying to get a job at a feature or trying to get a job at a TV studio, then you'd send it with a very clear, easily viewable portfolio. And then that's how you do it. You just email them links at the job, you know, application part of their websites. For your short, do you make an animatic before shooting the film, or do you make it yourself? Yeah, I make a 2D animatic before I make a film, always. So we have an idea of the angles of the shots, and then we know basic beats and acting. So basically, you can watch my whole cartoon, my Viking short, before we've even started building the sets. You can watch my whole short before all the puppets are done, because it's just done in 2D. So you should have an idea if your story is going to work way before you go through all the problems of building a cast and sets. You figure on YouTube films, it's him with the dragon shotguns. I think it looks good. You're in great shape. What's your workout regimen? Oh, thanks, dude. I don't feel in great shape. But I box. That's my big thing. And since the lockdown, I have not been boxing. And I also skate. So that is something that I do with my daughter. We go to the skate park. I used to be a gymnast. I think that's where most of my in shape comes from. So when I was a kid, I did a lot of like stunts and flips and parkour type stuff, and even into my early 40s, I did that. So a lot of that I think is still with me. But really, my workout regimen would be like I would box at least twice a week, and then when I'm training for a fight or something like that, it'll be 5, 6 times a week, and then I get really in good shape. But otherwise, right now, I just do some cardio with my daughter, and we go to the skate park and stuff like that. Favorite project? Do I like Neverending Story? Yeah, I love it. I watched it like 2 days ago. I watch it probably 6 times a year. I love that movie. I love it. That's classic Justin childhood nostalgia. Creatures, fantasy, practical effects, awesome story. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I love that movie. Favorite project you've worked on? I think I answered this already, but it's Paranorman. I would say so far it's Paranorman. I've worked on maybe 5 films, and that's definitely my number one. My battery's going out, guys. But it's also time to go work out with my daughter here. So I'm going to answer 3 more questions. And then, there we go, we're plugged in. 5%. Got it just in time. 3 more questions, and then I'm going to roll into my weekend. Ooh, I might not even have 3 more questions. I made a figure with my Reaper figure. I made a video with my Reaper figure on my YouTube films. It's him with the dragon shotguns, and I think it looks good. And I got ideas and tips from you. Oh, that's awesome, man. Reaper films. I love Reaper. He's my favorite Overwatch character. All right, here comes the questions. 1, 2, and 3. Will you try to get more rest this year? Here's the thing. When I'm boxing, which I just started boxing again just a couple weeks ago. I'm 2 sessions in now, proper two sparring sessions in. I have to sleep more because my body cannot repair if I don't sleep enough. So the good thing is you'll get less animation from me, but I'll sleep more. So that answers it. Since I'm moving more towards boxing again and being active. Thanks for the insight. Patreon would be 100%. Okay, that's good to hear. You're the first person that said anything. Real tutorials, right? Guys, just to say, I was going to put this year a bunch of YouTube tutorials on YouTube. Real just nuts and bolts. This is how you do a walk. This is how you do a run. This is how you do a rig. This is how you build an armature. This is how you build a clay puppet, mold, you name it, the whole way through. Everything you guys asked me for, but step by step. But I'm not making any money off YouTube at all. I make hardly any money off of TikTok. So because of that, I'm like, I need to support all this work I'm doing financially, right? Because I spend a lot of time editing these videos. I spend a lot of time talking with you guys, creating content. And I'm not really getting the reward I need for giving away all this information. So with the Patreon, like I said, if I'm putting out that on there behind that paywall instead of, for free on YouTube, which is getting nothing for me financially, it helps me as an artist. It allows me to get in here more, animate more, create my stories, which is really important to me, part of this. So I think that's the way I'm going to go, and I'm glad you're down with it, because I'll put in certain tiers where you won't get full access to me like you would in a private education, but we'll still be communicating privately, depending on what tier it is. And I'll also be listening to you guys, specifically what kind of tutorials you want. And then I can just create those videos directly for the Patreon. So I'm leaning that way. It's probably going to happen. And I'm glad to hear you dig it. In the boxing post, I put up any thoughts on anything I could improve upon. in the boxing post. JJ the Super Turtle. You know what? You gotta send it to me on my Instagram messages because I can't remember it right now. Did I comment on it? Because if I commented on it, then I probably said something. If not, if you want specific notes, just shoot me a message on my Instagram, and I will get back to you, Super Turtle. All right. What do you look for in a person to work with in animation? Oh man, heart, talent. It's a small industry, and like if you're cool, that's awesome, man. It's gonna serve you your whole life. And when I say cool, I mean just like cool, open, positive. But really, enthusiasm is big for me too, because I'm such a enthusiastic, nerdy lover of animation, right? If there's another person out there who is like, you like animation? I like animation. Let's be friends, right? Like, that's me. I'm that guy. Like, I'll be shy as hell. But if you talk about a couple of things in the world, we're friends. We're like instant friends. I'm like, oh my God, you like that too? I like that, So I look for enthusiasm in young people too, as artists and in animation. I hope that answered that. And I think that was 3 questions. But I'm going to answer one more. Why foam latex over silicone? Foam latex is not over silicone. I use both. Most of my home garage career has been foam latex. And that's because it was the first thing I learned. Silicone, I was always warned away from early on. They said, it's too difficult to work with. It rips. You can't paint it. Nothing sticks to it. Like, it was too problematic. And I was already overwhelmed by the amount of stuff you got to learn when you do stop motion, right? So here I am 13, 14 years later, whatever it is. I love silicone. It's amazing. But I didn't know how to use it at first. And it is a lot more complicated. But it looks incredible. And once you understand how to work with it, make molds, paint into the mold so you get a really clean looking character, it's incredible. So I will use both. Right now, I'm switching from using foam latex on my Viking film to silicone because I love how much it looks, how good it looks. As soon as I did all the silicone puppets for Reaper and Tracer and all the Overwatch, I was like, oh man, we can do this. This is amazing. But foam's easy to repair. There's a lot of good things about foam, especially because puppets break, homemade puppets break. And it's a lot easier to cut open a foam latex puppet and repair it and fix it, make it look brand new again than it can be on silicone sometimes. And that is it. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it very much. I'm sorry I couldn't show you the Reaper test, but I will show you guys soon. It came out pretty good, really hard for Toymate toys. And I have a really awesome collaboration that I'm going to be working on with Michelle Mello. I don't know if you guys know her. If not, go check her out on Instagram, Michelle Mello Made. She's an awesome puppet maker, works up at Leica. I'm doing a collab with her, and I shot a bunch of great live action footage to play with it very soon. So it's a big one. It's going to take me like 6 weeks to animate, but I'll do little sneak peeks in the meantime. So thank you again. See you next Friday.